And in the case of the Iraq War, they wanted to tell a president, the great words of George Tenet, this would be a slam dunk, Mr. President, to give you this phony intelligence, which is exactly what they did and took this country into war. Now, I think Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld were determined to go to war regardless of what the intelligence said. But the fact is the CIA made it a lot easier for them by going to the Congress, which essentially was a pushover, given the fact that there's never been an act of real spine in terms of a resolute Congress over the last several years. They were pushed over by this CIA intelligence.
Well, a friend sent me an article the other day by James Rison, and it was about the neocons, particularly Douglas Feith and Richard Pearl, and I don't know if Wurmser's in there or not. Anyway, but Feith
Libby is certainly.
Yeah.
I saw the piece.
Oh, you saw the piece. There you go. And they're complaining that, no fair, the CIA and the State Department got to trash us for years without us really being able to fight back, as though they don't have the Weekly Standard and the National Review, I guess, the Wall Street Journal. But anyway, it's just not true that it's all the neocons' fault, because, after all, we'd sit there and tell Bush that Saddam Hussein was in league with Mohammed Atta or whatever, and the CIA and the State Department would sit there and say nothing. And they never stood up to us on our lies, so therefore they're just as guilty as we are. And I have to admit that it seems like he's got a point there.
Well, he does and he doesn't. In some cases, they did stand up. On the links to terrorism, which was really a Pentagon creation, this was the Office of Special Plans that Douglas Feith ran over at the Pentagon, that not only collected phony intelligence, but then distributed to the White House, which was a violation of the charter of the Pentagon. The CIA made it clear they didn't have evidence of such linkage, but then George Tenet himself wrote a letter to the then chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Bob Graham, saying there was intelligence. Well, he didn't say, yes, there was intelligence, but it was bad intelligence. Some of it was forged intelligence that talked about such links. But you're right. In a lot of issues, they didn't stand up. On the curveball thing and the mobile biological labs, they didn't stand up. But the State Department did. On the aluminum tubes issue, whether these were for rockets or for conventional artillery, and the evidence was clear they were for conventional artillery. Saddam Hussein didn't even buy this stuff secretly. He bought it in open markets with open documentation. Everyone knew this was the Italian 81-millimeter Medusa rocket that they had created. It was for his conventional program. It was legal by all of the UN sanctions. He could engage in this activity. But even Colin Powell went along with this military weapon as something for strategic arms. So there was a lot of fraud that was going on within the intelligence community. But as the Senate Intelligence Committee established a couple weeks ago in a report that most people just totally ignored, and the print media, again, totally ignored, the Senate Intelligence Committee finally released its report on how the Bush administration falsified the intelligence that it was given by the CIA. Granted, they weren't given good intelligence to begin with, but in each and every case, they made it worse. And particularly when you look at the argument that was used by Dick Cheney and Condoleezza Rice and Donald Rumsfeld and even George Bush that the mushroom cloud should not be a smoking gun, there was no evidence of a nuclear weapons program in Iraq. This was well known to the Department of Energy. It was well known to the State Department's intelligence and research, and it was even well known to the Air Force. So the CIA really was corrupting some of the intelligence in this case, too.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing that you mentioned about the Pentagon's growth and power reminded me of that Seymour Hersh article, The Coming Wars, what the Pentagon can now do in secret, and how it seems like in the intra-governmental fighting or what have you that the Pentagon or the Vice President's office decided they wanted to punish the CIA, and so they used the phony 9/11 Commission as the pressure from below to get the National Intelligence Director seat created, basically, and make the CIA director simply the CIA director, not the director of Central Intelligence overall anymore, and to punish the CIA, and then it seems like turn over more and more covert activities to the military, who don't even have to bother showing up at John Rockefeller's committee there.
Well, I think we always had the Pentagon's de facto control of the intelligence community. The intelligence community budget, for example, is a secret budget that's buried inside the Pentagon budget. So the Pentagon controls about 85 to 90% of the budget. And if you look at the personnel of the intelligence community, they're 85 to 90% of the personnel really report to the Pentagon. They're either uniformed members of the services or they're Defense Department officials. But now with the Pentagon's pressure, and Rumsfeld had a lot to do with this, to create a department of national intelligence under a retired, now three-star Navy admiral, this meant that in terms of mission and charter, the Pentagon really runs the intelligence community. And even the new appointment of an Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, which was created by Rumsfeld in the early first Bush administration, but he appointed a civilian. Bob Gates came along and appointed a retired three-star general to run this position. So if you look around the intelligence community, you have Michael Hayden, a four-star general, the director of national intelligence, a retired three-star admiral, the top leaders of the National Counterterrorism Center, active duty and retired admirals, the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, a retired three-star general. The military runs the intelligence community, and this is exactly what Harry Truman didn't want when he created the CIA and the intelligence community about 60 years ago in the National Security Act of 1947. He said it should be outside the policy process. Well, not only has it been brought into the tent of policy, but it's the Pentagon's tent that is running this show in terms of budget, personnel, and basically the major missions of the intelligence community. And this is wrong. This is going to produce bad intelligence, and it's going to produce not the kind of important strategic intelligence that we need to avoid blunders like Vietnam and the Iraq War.
Well, and it does mean that they don't have to show up at John Rockefeller's committee to explain what they're doing, right?
No, nothing gets explained, and there's really no accountability. But I blame basically the Senate Intelligence Committee for that, because when those oversight committees were created in 1975, 1976 by Senator Frank Church of Idaho and Congressman Otis Pike of New York, it was to provide genuine, rigorous, and tenacious oversight of these secret agencies. And you can't have secret agencies running around in a democratic society. They can undercut your democracy, and we're seeing that. And look, in the last few years, certainly since 9/11, look at the CIA role in torture and abuse, secret prisons, extraordinary renditions. These are crimes, and eventually the Supreme Court is moving toward decisions that I think will establish these activities as crime. There need to be accountability. These are war crimes as far as I'm concerned when you look at torture and abuse and secret prisons. But again, there's been no accountability in this area.
Yeah, I actually want to play a clip for you here that somebody stopped by my blog and dropped this off yesterday, a guy named Charles Davis. He just, I guess, walked up to J. Rockefeller with a tape recorder. The date on this is April 18th of last year, and this is just 40 seconds long here. And the question, let me set this up correctly because I edited it down. The question is about the Brian Ross report about American support for the al-Qaeda-like terrorist group Jundullah in Pakistan for use against Iranians. Of course, they're back in the news for murdering some Iranian police over the weekend. Here is John Rockefeller's response.
Is there anything that you could do in your position as chairman of the Intelligence Committee to maybe find answers about this, if it is in fact going on?
Don't you understand the way intelligence works? Do you think that because I'm chairman of the Intelligence Committee that I just say I want it and give it to me? They control it, all of it, all the time. I only get, and my committee only gets, what they want to give me.
Is there any way, maybe not you, but somehow, that they can press the administration to find something, if they're doing something, if it may be illegal? Is there any ways to find out? Or
I don't know that. I deal with intelligence. Mm-hmm. That's it. Okay. They tend to avoid it.
Wow. I've never heard that before. That is unbelievable.
There you go.
He has the power of subpoena. He has the power of investigation. He has the power of the purse. They have a chop on the CIA budget. They have a chop on the CIA director, the CIA deputy director, the CIA inspector general to stand up before anyone. And I don't know who Charles Davis is, but I want to thank him for that exchange. And to say I have no control over any of this is unbelievable. And did this ever get into the news media?
No. This is just a small thing on a blog.
Unbelievable. This is on a blog?
Yeah. I'll send you the link actually after the show to the guy's blog.
Because I'm doing an update. My book is about to sell out. It's going to go into paperback at the end of the year, and I want to get that into the updated paperback edition.
Yeah, well, and that really is the problem when you're turning to John D. Rockefeller IV to be the protector of the little guy in this country. I mean, give us a break. Here in the House, we have Sylvester Reyes, and a reporter cornered him and said, all right, what's the difference between Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda? And he said, oh, man, I don't know. Why do you have to ask me this on a Friday when I'm going home?
Well, I blame Nancy Pelosi for that appointment. I wasn't a big fan of Jane Harman, but she was a hell of a lot more tenacious and rigorous and intelligent than Reyes.